Not long after that, she expressed the desire to live the home life, but her husband would not give his consent. 2 or 3 years later, she gave birth to a second son. Because her basic disposition was extremely fine, when she heard the Dharma masters expound the Dharma, saying that everything in the world was bound up in suffering, emptiness, and impermanence, and was without a self, she resolved to leave home no matter what. At this time, Kumarajiva was only 7 years old, although his father had formerly wanted to leave home. After his marriage to Jiva, he gave up the idea. He was now too much in love with his beautiful wife and too fond of his money and his position. In the Sutra of 42 sections, it says, "It's hard to practice giving when one is poor. It is hard to study the way when one is rich." Because of his wealth and rank, Kumarayana had become confused. Not only did he not want to leave home, he wouldn't allow his wife to leave home either. One day when Jiva was strolling outside the city, she came upon a charnel field. Seeing the dry, brittle bones scattered in great disorderly heaps, she profoundly grasped the universal truth of suffering and accordingly made a vow. "You say you won't let me leave home," she said, "but I'd die before I'd remain here." And she began to fast. At first, Kumarayana didn't think much of her not eating, but when she hadn't taken any food or even a drink of water for 6 days, he grew concerned. On the evening of the 6th day, seeing her weakened condition and fearing that she might really starve to death, he finally relented. "All right," he said, "you may leave home. Now please eat something." Jiva replied, "First ask the Dharma master to cut my hair and then I will eat. Otherwise, after I eat, you might go back on your word." Kumarayana had no choice but to go to Chalita temple and ask the abbot to shave his wife's head. After that she ate. From that time on, she studied the Buddha Dharma with great sincerity. In studying the Dharma, sincerity is essential. Without a sincere heart, no matter how long you study, you'll obtain nothing. Because she was so sincere, ready to starve to death in order to leave home, and because she saw cultivation as more important than life itself, she was able to reach the extreme of single-mindedness. She put absolutely everything else aside, and at that time her spiritual light blazed forth, and she realized the first fruit of arhatship. Often she would take Kumarajiva with her to the temple. He was only 7 years old at the time, and when he saw people bowing to the Buddha, he would do the same. When he saw people lighting incense, he would imitate them. Soon he left home with his mother. What do you think his father did? He was very upset. He found it as hard to let go of his son as it had been to let go of his wife. He may have wept bitter tears, is not known for sure. However, Kumarajiva's mother was very firm. "Cry all you like," she said, "but we are leaving home," and off they went. After Kumarajiva left home, he studied the small vehicle teachings and recited the sutras at the rate of 1,000 verses of 32 words each per day, or 32,000 words a day. That's about 30 times as many words as there are in the Suragama mantra. Think it over. Kumarajiva at 7 years old could memorize that many words in a single day. How does our intelligence compare with his? Every day you are given 24 Chinese characters to learn. But today you don't Remember yesterday's lesson. How can we possibly compare with him? His mother soon had an awakening. Being the little sister of a king, after she left home, she was showered with offerings, not wishing to live in luxury and intent on cultivating the way. She decided to take Kumarajiva with her and travel about. When Kumarajiva was 9 years old, she took him to Kashmir, where he studied the small vehicle under the High Master Bandudatta. Kumarajiva worked extremely hard at his studies, from dawn until noon. He wrote the verses out, and from noon until the sun went down, he recited them from memory. In addition to being intelligent, Kumarajiva was also not lazy. Because he was intelligent, he learned the sutras very fast. Because he was not lazy, his learning was extensive. If he had been intelligent but lazy, he never would have learned very much. If he had been industrious but not intelligent, he also would not have learned very much. But since he was both, he learned very fast. When he was 12, he and his mother set out to return to Kucha. As they passed through the northern mountains of Kusana, an arhat saw Kumarajiva and said, "You should take good care of this little novice. If by the time he is 35, he has not broken the precepts, he will be able to cause the Buddha Dharma to flourish greatly and will save countless beings, as did the fourth Patriarch Upagupta in India. If his precepts are not held intact, this will not be possible." The fourth Patriarch lived in a stone cave. Every time he converted someone, he put a slip of bamboo in his cave. Eventually, the cave was entirely filled with bamboo slips, which proves that he saved hundreds of thousands of people. On their way back to Kucha, they stopped in Kashinga. There, in a temple, Kumarajiva saw a large incense burner in front of the Buddha image. It must have weighed at least 100 pounds, but he picked it right up and put it over his head with no effort at all. Once he had done this, he thought, "I'm just a little child. How can I lift such a heavy thing?" With that one thought, the burner suddenly became very heavy and crashed to the ground. When his mother asked him what was going on, he said, "The burner seemed light and then heavy only because of discriminations in your son's mind." Thus, he awoke to the fact that everything is made from the mind alone. Before he had discriminated, he lifted the burner easily. Once he gave rise to discrimination, what had not been heavy became heavy. From this, he knew that the 10,000 dharmas arise only from the mind. He remained in Kashinga studying Abhidharma texts and was introduced to the great vehicle and realized that while the small vehicle was wonderful, the great vehicle was the wonderful within the wonderful. He sighed and said, "In my previous study of the small vehicle, I was like one who did not recognize gold and took ordinary rock as something wonderful." Although the king of Kashinga was anxious to keep him in his court, the king of Kucha sent a messenger asking him to return, and so Kumarajiva and his mother once again set out for Kucha. In a small country north of Kucha, there was a master of debate who loudly beat the palace drum and announced that if everyone could beat him in a debate, he would chop off his own head and present it to that person as a gift. This too was similar to the incident which took place between Shariputra's uncle and the Buddha. As Kumarajiva happened to be passing through, he questioned the man about the two principles which rendered him completely speechless. Since he couldn't bear to cut off his head, he bowed to Kumarajiva as his teacher and studied with him. Kumarajiva once again set out for Kuja and was welcomed at the border of the king himself. At the age of 20, Kumarajiva received the full precepts, that is, complete ordination at the palace. He studied the Savastivadin Vinaya in 10 sections under Vimalaksha, the well-known Shramana from Kashmir, who had ventured to Kutra and was a renowned master of the Vinaya. Meanwhile, Kumarajiva's mother decided to travel to India, where she was to certify to the third fruit of Arhatship. Before leaving, she took a look at the causes and conditions and saw that her son's affinities lay in China. She told him, "The profound Vaipulya teachings should be propagated extensively in China. You are the only one with the power to do this. However, it will be most unbeneficial for you personally. I don't know how you feel about this." Kumarajiva replied, "The way of the Bodhisattva is to benefit others and forget oneself. If I can transmit the great teaching and enlighten the pupil, I would not resent being boiled in a cauldron." Kumarajiva remained in Kutra for 2 years, studying the great vehicle sutras. Then his uncle, the king, had a golden lion throne made for him and asked him to ascend it and speak the Dharma. But at that time, Kumarajiva had something else on his mind. He wanted to convert his small vehicle master, Bandudatta. His small vehicle master had a lot of disciples, and if Kumarajiva could convert him, he would convert many others as well. So, although his uncle had made him a lion throne, he still intended to leave Kutra. This greatly upset his uncle. "I have been so gracious as to make you this throne," he said, "and you show me no consideration whatever." Curiously enough, shortly thereafter, Bandudatta arrived at the border, seeking entrance into Kutra. When border officials informed the palace, both Kumarajiva and the king went to meet him. The king asked Bandudatta, "Why have you come from so far?" Bandudatta replied, "I came first of all because I heard of the great awakening of my disciple, and secondly because I heard, great king, of your vast propagation of the Buddha way, and I wish to meet you." Kumarajiva was delighted to see his teacher and spoke for him the Sutra of the questions of the virtuous woman, the Great Vehicle Sutra. When he had finished, his teacher said, "Just what particular advantages does the Great Vehicle have that have caused you to take it up in lieu of the small vehicle?" Kumarajiva replied, "The great vehicle propounds the doctrine that dharmas are empty. The small vehicle relies upon names and marks." Bandudatta replied, "The great vehicle talks about emptiness, but emptiness is just emptiness, nothing at all. What's the use of studying it? If everything is empty, then why study it?" Kumarajiva said, "In emptiness there is existence. In true emptiness there is a wonderful existence. Within wonderful existence there is true emptiness. The great vehicle is the ultimate teaching. It is not like the small vehicle, which restricts itself with names and terms and does not teach genuine liberation. The small vehicle is too rigid and stuffy." When Bandudatta countered, "I have an analogy for the emptiness of the great vehicle. Once there was a madman who asked a weaver to weave him a piece of fine silk. The first piece of river brought him was not fine enough, and the second was still too coarse. He kept sending the weaver back to his room until, in exasperation, the weaver finally confronted him with nothing at all, just his empty fist clenched in space, and said, "Here it is. This is my finest work." "But there's nothing there," the madman said. "This silk is so fine," said the weaver, "that even I, the master weaver, cannot see it. It's so fine, it's invisible." The madman was delighted and paid a handsome price for the silk. The other weavers also took up this method, and they all cheated the madman, who paid out a lot of money for nothing at all. "Your exposition of the great vehicle Dharma is exactly like that," said Bandhudatta. "You talk about emptiness and say that within emptiness there is existence, but no one can see it." "No, no, no," said Kumarajiva, and he continued to explain many subtle great vehicle doctrines to him until finally, after over a month of discussion, he won his teacher over to the great vehicle and brought him to a true understanding of the doctrine of true emptiness and wonderful existence. Then what do you think happened? Bandhudatta said, "I want to bow to you as my master." Kumarajiva said, "You can't do that. I have already bowed to you as my master. How can you bow to me as your master?" Bandhudatta said, "I am your small vehicle master. You can be my great vehicle master." That way, we both have our masters and we both have our vehicles, and everyone will be satisfied. It's no big problem. In this way, Kumarajiva received his own teacher as a disciple. It's obvious from this that the ancients did not have a mark of self. They had true understanding, otherwise Bandhudatta would not have been able to bow his own disciple as a teacher. He would simply have said, "I don't care how lofty your eloquence, you are my disciple and that's that." The ancients had no view of self. They took the way as their teacher. All that was necessary was for someone else to have more virtue than they, and they would bow to them as their teacher. They had no obstructive thoughts of rank or position, and they were not self-centered. One time, when the weather was extremely dry in Kutra and it hadn't rained for a long time, Kumarajiva manifested great spiritual powers and set up a Dharma altar to seek rain. He announced, "Within 3 days there will certainly be rain." Sure enough, before 3 days had passed, it rained. Everyone believed in him even more. All the nations stood in awe of Kumarajiva, and the kings would kneel beneath his speaking platform to listen to him expound upon the sutras. They would even allow themselves to be used as chairs. Kumarajiva would deliver lectures sitting on the backs of the kings, who did this to show how much they honored him and how much they esteemed the Buddha Dharma. Yao Qin, in the name of the reign period of Emperor Yao Xing. Earlier, Fu Qian had set up the Fu Qin dynasty. The Fu Qian was when Fu Qian was murdered by Yao Chang. The dynasty name was changed to Yao Qin. Later, when Yao Chang died, Yao Xing took the throne. In Chang'an, Fu Qian's court astrologer Qi Tianquan had seen a wisdom star shining over India and told Fu Qian, "In India there is a person of great wisdom who shall be coming here to protect our country." Fu Qian said, "It is most likely Kumarajiva. We should send our troops to escort him here." He then sent General Lu Huang with 70,000 mounted troops to Kutra after Kumarajiva. Before Lu Huang arrived in Kutra, Kumarajiva had told the king, "China is sending troops to our country, but they do not wish to take our land. They have another objective, and you should listen to them and agree to their demands." But the king refused to listen, and when Lu Kuang arrived, he sent out his troops to fight. The Chinese army was large and powerful, and Kudra was just a little country. The king was murdered and his troops defeated. As the king had been an ardent believer in Buddhism, you may wonder why he was murdered. It was because the killing karma he had created in past lives was too heavy. It was a fixed, unavoidable retribution. Lu Kuang captured Kumarachirva and started back. One night, he camped in a gorge at the base of two mountains. Kumarachirva advised him not to come there, as it was an inauspicious site. But Lu Kuang said, "What do you, a left-home person, know about military matters?" In the middle of the night, a flood swept down the gorge and Lu Kuang lost several thousand men. The next day, he realized that Kumarajiva was rather extraordinary, that he had spiritual powers. Before the troops had drowned, he did not believe in him, but now he certainly did. When Lu Kuang arrived in Kutang, he heard that in China Fujian had been murdered by Yao Chang, who had set up the Yao Qin dynasty. Uncertain as to how he would be received in China, Lu Kuang decided to remain in Lutang and maintain his neutrality. When Lu Kuang's most esteemed minister Chang Chi fell ill, a Brahman healer thought to swindle Lu Kuang and claimed that he could cure Chang Chi's illness. Lu Kuang gave him a large sum of money, but Kumarajiva knew the man was a swindler and said to Lu Kuang, "No matter how much money you give him, you won't be able to cure Chang Chi's illness. I will prove it to you. Here is a 5-colored thread which I shall burn into ashes. Then I will put the ashes in some water. If the ashes turn back into a 5-colored thread, then Chang Chi's illness will not be cured. If they do not, he will get well. If you don't believe me, we'll try it out." He burned the thread and put the ashes in a cup of water. As soon as he did this, the ashes turned into a 5-colored thread. Seeing this, Lu Kuang knew that Chang Chi could not be cured. Soon after Chang Chi died, Lu Kuang had spent a lot of money and got no results whatsoever. This was the inconceivable state of Kumarajiva. His spiritual powers was something which ordinary people could never fathom. In China, when Yao Chang died, his son Yao Xing took the throne. A loyal supporter of the Buddha Dharma, he sent men to Kutang to bring Kumarajiva to China. In Kutang, Lu Kuang had died and his son Lu Shao took the throne. Shortly after, Lu Chuan, the son of one of his father's concubines, murdered Lu Shao and seized power. During the second year of Lu Chuan's reign, a 3-headed pig was born. Then a dragon was seen crawling out of a well when the outskirts of the eastern part of the city. It coiled up in front of the palace hall and remained there until dawn, when it disappeared. Thinking this an auspicious portent, Lu Chuan renamed the palace Hovering Dragon. Then a black dragon was seen outside the throne room gates. Lu Chuan changed the name from Night Chamber Gates to Rising Dragon Gates. Kumarajiva told Lu Chuan the appearance of these dragons is highly inauspicious. They are yin dragons, and their frequent appearance foretells calamities for the nation. I advise the cultivation of virtue to forestall these impending disasters. Lu Chuan did not hear of this. While playing chess with Kumarajiva, Lu Chuan was about to take one of Kumarajiva's men and said, in reference to the chess more, I cut off the Hunu's barbarian's head. Startled, Kamarajiva said, "You cannot cut off the Hunu's head. The Hunu will cut off someone's head." This was a prophecy. Although Lu Tuan failed to understand it as such, Lu Huang's little brother Lu Pao had a son named Lu Trao, whose nickname was Hunu. At that time, Lu Trao was plotting Lu Tuan's murder. Later, Lu Trao did in fact kill Lu Tuan and Lu Lung, who was ruling the country when Yao Xing's troops arrived from China to take Kumarajiva. Kumarajiva arrived in China at Chang'an in 401 AD and was made a national master. He headed a translation center with over 800 Sangha and lay scholars assisting him in his work. By the time he died, he had produced over 300 rolls of translation. We have proof that Kumarajiva's translations are extremely accurate. When he was about to die, he asked to be cremated and said, "I have translated many sutras during my lifetime, and I personally do not know if they are correct. If they are, when I am cremated, my tongue will not burn. If there are mistakes, however, it will." When his body was burned, his tongue was found unburned in the ashes. During the Tang Dynasty, Vinaya master Tao Xuan once asked the god Lu Xuan Cha, "Why does everyone prefer to read Kumarajiva's translations?" The god replied, "Kumarajiva has been the translation master for the past 7 Buddhas, and so his translations are extremely accurate." Kumarajiva was a Tripitaka master, one who has mastered the 3 divisions of the Buddhist canon, the Sutras, Shastras, and Vinaya. A Dharma master takes the Dharma as his master and bestows the Dharma upon others. Some Dharma masters chant sutras, others maintain them in their minds and practice them with their bodies. Others write them out, and still others explain them to others. The Dharma master here referred to is Kumarajiva. This Sanskrit word means youth and long life. One could say, young Kumarajiva will certainly live to a great age. One could also say, he is young in years but mature in wisdom, eloquence, and virtue. He has the wisdom of an old man, and so he is called the youth of long life. It was Kumarajiva, then the youth with the wisdom and virtuous conduct of an elder, who translated from Sanskrit into Chinese the wonderful Dharma Lotus Flower Sutra.